All right, sweet. Thanks Tucker for that link. Yeah, Lulu. So to go over it quickly, but yeah, I think Tucker sent you a good link, and I'll point you to a few good pin messages within OWLS. Um, yeah. So these maps, essentially, what you see on the right here. Actually, let me just pull up one so I don't confuse you. So what we're seeing over here, right, is we have a bunch of dealer exposure for. I'm looking at SPY right now, so it's showing us the next 5 expiration dates. And a bunch of strikes, right? And showing us dealer exposure at each strike for each expiration date. The important thing for us is just where we have major volume, we know that uh, dealers are forced to react, and a lot of times we're going to see pretty strong reversals, right? So those are going to be pretty strong magnets. I would encourage you not to look at them as magnets because these are ever shuffling levels. Like overnight, they don't shift, but as soon as market opens until the moment that it closes, these levels are constantly readjusting, right? So I would encourage you to look at the strong levels, and when price goes and hits those levels, know that a lot of times dealers are forced to react at those levels, and that's where we expect these strong reversals to come in. Now, this is a supplement to whatever you're charting, so like still whatever you're seeing on the chart goes first, and you should always have a thesis on the chart before you find any trade-off heat seeker, right? So this is not something that operates in isolation or that goes above charting. So this is a supplement, right? Um, and yeah, so we're looking for strong volume. There's positive and negative, which is why it's sort of color coded. So usually, the very strong negative will be more purplish, and then maybe a little bit blue if it's a little bit lesser, and then very strong positive is going to be yellowish to greenish, right? So that's going to be the most distinctive thing. But again, I would always encourage look at the actual numbers just to verify any setups. Don't get stuck looking at the colors, right? Sometimes the colors can be a bit off, and I can show examples of that later if you need. But yeah, I think the Lulu, if you're like completely new to it, what I'll recommend is that if you go to the heat seeker analysis channel within OWLS, go to the pin messages, and where was this? So one, the first pin message is just how do you navigate the free access that you all get on Tuesdays. So how do you actually use the channels within OWLS? There's a video for that, is the first one that's pinned. The second one is going to be very important as well. Oh, we haven't sent. Oh, wait, let me pin the next. Sorry. So there's gonna be 3 pin messages now that I just pinned another one. So yeah, I would start with the heat seeker navigation on YouTube, but then I would go through this skylit.ai/learn. So that's something John built, which is going through a lot of the fundamentals and sort of walking you through step by step. And go through all of that. And then if you have any follow-up questions, let me know and DM me. Because I can help you out there, Lulu. But yeah, it's a lot to learn. Just go through a bit of the resources just to get an intro. And then when I have future sessions, then you'll at least have a grasp of some of the fundamentals, right? And DM me. I can also send you a few other videos that I think are very, very helpful. I don't know what to call it. I guess dog. Someone in here is just the dog emoji. Are heat maps and heat seeker same thing? Yeah, heat seeker is just showing heat maps. All right. I'll flip over to Zoom. How do you zoom in on Zoom browser? I don't know. Yeah, hopefully someone else in here knows. The Zoom can help with that. All right. So JJ, let me get to your question. Shoot. Okay, so wait, give me a second, y'all. Oh, the font's really small. Wait a second. Is this better? Who is this? Sunwin or Garcia? Oh, Dennis. What? Oh, you mean on the right side? Oh, I see what's going on. All right. That should be a little bit better for everyone, both trading view and the heat maps. Okay, yeah, no problem. All right. Dog. So, dog, I'm gonna, I guess, give the same answers I gave Lulu of going through the heat seeker analysis channel. Just go through some of those intro docs. And then once you've gone through a few of those, just feel free to message me afterwards, and I can help clarify any confusions or like where you should go next. Uh, Panda, do I feel like I'm using the Atlas feature? No, I'm still using the heat maps, like the normal heat maps. The reason for that is Atlas is only showing you like a top X percentage, or not percentage, but the strongest 10, 25 nodes, whatever you have the setting set to. So the normal heat maps will show us all the data. So I'm still biased towards doing that. Also, the normal heat maps show us what is the actual number, right? So on Atlas, if the node can be strongest, but we can have a king node, let's say. But on Atlas, if that king node shrank by 50%, but it's still the king node, I think it's still going to be showing the same strength, right? But I actually want to know what the actual value is. So even when I do start using Atlas more often, I'm still going to have the heat map right next to it. So it's not something where it's going to replace, at least not yet for me. I'm always going to have the heat map up still on the side. So yeah, Panda, that probably answers your question. Overseas, can you show us how to basically read the heat seeker charts? Holy. Okay, everyone on Zoom, I'll get to your stuff in a second. I'm gonna give just a quick intro again. Overseas, so essentially we're looking for very strong volume, right? When we see strong volume, whether it's positive or negative, we're waiting for price to go tap those levels and deflect off of it. So this is like a reversal based tool, right? Like this will help you the most if you're doing reversals. So do not always get caught looking at strong nodes and assuming price must go there, right? Always make sure, even if you have a bias one way up or down, make sure you're still looking for what floors and what ceilings exist that price can come and tap them and then bounce off of them, right? So that's like the core concept of how this works. Then like one other important thing to note is the expected behavior of price, whether you're in a positive gamma or a negative gamma zone, right? So when we have positive gamma, so that's going to be like yellow greenish, usually price is going to be a bit more dampened, a little bit more slow moving, less volatile. When we're in a negative gamma zone, it's going to be more volatile, a lot more wicky, more like explosive move on price. Um, so that's going to be an important distinction to make because even if we think price is going to bounce off the same level, right? Like let's say 686, right now it's positive. Let's say it was negative, right? We're still expecting a reversal, assuming that our chart thesis is there. But the behavior of how price is going to reverse can change, right? Based on if it's positive or negative. So that helps us basically tailor our entry, right? In terms of if we're on a negative node, bouncing off a negative node, a lot of times we can account for there being an undershoot or an overshoot, depending which direction you're coming from. And a lot of times we can buy in a lot cheaper, right? So we can limit buy into the play at a cheaper price. Whereas when we're looking at positive nodes, a lot of times or not a lot of times, we're less likely to overshoot, right? The other big thing for indexes, especially, is we don't look at any of these in isolation, right? We want to be looking at all three. So we're looking at SPX, SPY, QQQ. We're basically getting more data for whatever play we're trying to find, right? So if we have a case where all three of them are pointing to us having a floor soon and having an upwards bounce, that play is going to go a lot better, 9 times out of 10, than if we were playing a map where one map says we're going to bounce upwards, the other two are saying we're going to bounce downwards, right? Because now it's a bit more of conflicting messaging, right? So always be checking SPX, SPY, QQQ. Some people even check IWM and VIX. But at least be looking at the three SPX, SPY, QQQ, and make sure, okay, any trade you want to take on the indexes, that you're seeing good alignment across the board, right? In terms of we have a floor soon or we have a ceiling soon, right? So that's the basics overseas. But again, there's a lot of resources we've already posted in OWLS, so like I'll point you all to those. Just so otherwise every office hours I'll just have to hop on here and re-explain the basics of this every time. So just like, yeah, to save time and get into more detailed questions, I think I'll leave it there and let you all go through a few of those resources. And then as you have questions after going through a bit of that stuff, like I said, feel free to message me at any time, and I'm happy to go over any of those questions. All right, let me flip over to Zoom. All right, so what do we have? I have to go all the way to the top. All right, JJ, sorry, let me go. All right, so back to your question, right? Where you're saying, let me see. So today you cut your calls way too early since 6860 showed up, then faded. Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. So let me switch to SPX here. And I don't know what happened on SPX. Did everyone figure out like what's the deal with the data on TradingView? Because if they're gonna start charging us for a different package, that's bogus. All right. Oh, market closes here. So I think today, maybe it was like around noon. No, it's a bit later. All right. So if I start skipping through here. Okay. All right. So 6860 showed up. What we had here though is we had a bit of a ceiling here on QQQ, right? Where we pushed a little higher. So I think we ended up rejecting. There was one portion we rejected a little bit, right? So around here, like right after lunch, I believe, where we had a slight decrease off. So it's probably around there that you're saying that we had that decrease, that drop off in volume on 6860. But I guess one thing I'll highlight here, right, is as we were pushing higher, we had, especially on SPY, it was the clearest of this. We had a lot of volume roll from 677 up to 680, right? And then we also had a lot of volume step in on 685. So SPY was consistently rolling volume higher. SPX was, but not as clearly. Like I think SPY was really the clearest one today. And then also QQQ, we had this rug pull at 613, 612 that actually played out a couple times. So if you switch over here to QQQ, we had a couple early rejections off of that right here around what, like 11 and 12 or 1140. So there's a few like scalps you could have played there. But then once we broke above 613, right, we know, okay, 613 is potentially turning to a floor once we get a good amount above, which is, I think this was on the lunchtime news. And then we also see on SPY, right, we're getting a ton of volume rolling higher and higher, right? So we did have, I think 6860, we did get there and we got a very small rejection here. But at that point, it was later in the afternoon. Yeah, at that point, the main concern was yes, we may reject off 6860 once we push towards it. But there's just not very much there's not much room to the downside, right? Because SPY, we had already rolled this floor almost basically to 682. The King node had completely just flipped upside at 685. QQQ, we saw this 613 very strong. So actually this QQQ 612, all the negative volume there rolled higher to 615, 614. And now QQQ, we actually had like an inverse rug, right? But the key thing here is we didn't actually retest 613, but the point is there's just very small downside. So I didn't actually expect that we'd break through 6860 like that strong. Like I thought it would sort of we'd be grind above and maybe grind towards 685. But I think we ended up exploding like during mock, right? We just got a huge candle that just ripped through that, and then we ended up pushing towards 685. And I think we actually overshot 685. So I think like JJ, I don't know how, I guess you said you cut too early. I don't know what too early means. Like I don't know if you meant as we first approached 6860, which I think that's fine, right? As we're approaching this node that you were targeting, to trim the majority there is completely fine, right? There's no issue there. And if if you have enough for like a maybe just one or two just like complete lotto runners, leave them. But otherwise, I wouldn't think there's actually much wrong with trimming at that because at this point, right? So before we got like this mega candle, which was like mock trade, right? At this point, the only clue we had here is that 6875 and 6865, these started building quite a bit of negative volume. And obviously 685 had like a huge amount of volume, but this is still a valid point where we might reject at 6860, as well as 615 on QQQ looked like it could be ceiling, right? So if you sold the majority there, I don't see, I wouldn't, uh, I guess I wouldn't critique yourself that harshly, right? But I don't know if you sold earlier on the pump or not. I'd have to, but yeah, this is something I'm gonna look into. I might have to leave this for tomorrow, but I've seen quite a few times. I was talking with Myron with this about this earlier during the office hours. I've seen quite a few times that we have some pretty explosive pumps through an apparent ceiling, and a lot of times it's paired with like a big increase, a big pop in negative volume above. So if you look at like 6875, 6865, we see that those are just getting like a huge pop in volume. And then that's when I've seen a lot of these explosive rips like past an apparent ceiling. But I don't want to say that's like a set pattern until I look at it a bit further. Like I've noticed it a few times, but I really want to look back and see if it's something that I can find more consistently. But JJ, hopefully that helps. SP, how can you tell on the heat map what regime you're in? Yeah, so SP usually it's going to be based on like the strongest nodes are predominantly what, right? So I think late in the day it's not the best example, but let's say like around midday, it's kind of a mixed bag today, honestly. But like when we're looking at QQQ, we're saying, okay, we're predominantly positive volume, right? Especially 613 to 615, especially once you got above the 612, right? It's predominantly positive gamma, right? SPY is actually a mix. Like we had two negative, two positive. It's kind of mixed bag there. And then SPY mixed bag. SPX as well, though, right? Like we have a couple of nodes up here positive, but then we also have very strong negative nodes towards 6800, 6810. So it's not always going to be super clear. But some days it will be very apparent. Like if you go replay any of the days from like end of February, actually, I'll just do it now just to show you. So like February 25th, I'm just guessing here, but yeah, so look, like, I mean, we pull up February 25th and let me go to like actual market hours. We pull up 10 a.m., like this is all positive gamma, right? SPX has a couple of nodes, but if you look, this is just all positive gamma, right? So it'll be very apparent some days when it happens, right? And you just see huge stacks of like yellow, greenish nodes or slightly bluish in this case. So if it's something where you kind of see a mixed bag and you're not able to tell clearly, I would um, just treat it as a mix, right? So we're not always clearly in one regime or the other. The other thing that can happen is sometimes SPY will be showing very positive regime, but QQQ is showing very negative regime, right? So like, I think a good example is this is not quite regime, but like last Friday, right? If I go here, if you go pretty late day last Friday, what you'll notice is the floor of day was positive on SPY, but negative on QQQ, right? So you don't always get alignment. And when you see that, that's usually what I'll do is I'll err on the side of caution, right? So if I'm trying to play a balance off of these levels and I notice one is positive, one is negative, the way I think of it is, okay, we could have a more like negative gamma movement, which means if I enter based on the positive node, there's a higher chance we overshoot, right? And I end up with the worst entry. So I'll just assume the worst case scenario, which would be a negative gamma environment, which means I can get a much cheaper entry, right? So that's what I usually like when there's a split decision, I'll just err on the side of caution, whether that is just not trading at all or just assuming that it's going to be the one that can give me a cheaper entry, right? Because if you take the early entry, a lot of times you'll get burned, right? If it does end up being, um, we do end up getting some kind of overshoot there. So hopefully that helps SP. Fareed and Dana. You're new, having a hard time despite watching all the videos and even the academy. You're not. You're confused by the colors and how to make sense of it. Fareed, so I'll break it down. Like first, always be looking for where you have strong volume, regardless of your sign. Then you want to go ahead and say, okay, do we have good alignment across SPX, SPY, QQQ in terms of your floors or ceilings? Then once we actually go and tap those levels, that's when it's important to know, okay, is it positive or negative and what's the expected movement at those levels, right? So I would try to take it like step by step, right? So first volume, then no, then look for alignment, and then you can focus on like what is actual sign and how do we expect price to move in those areas. The other thing I'll say for you is just text me, like add me on Discord and message me, and probably later this week I can probably hop on a call with you. Some of this stuff is like you go through the theory and the videos, right? Like a lot of that's very theory based. But applying that real time can be very different, right? So a lot of times just sharing what you've been doing, how you've been reading them yourself, and me just listening in, I can help you a bit more there. So let me know and or just message me and we can probably set something up and that'll probably help you out a bit more. Because you probably know a lot of the theory, it's just in practice, it's a little trickier, right? All right. Let me see here. What else do we have? All right, John. Oh no, not John. Felipe. Can I review Tesla? Yeah, I can. Let me look at Tesla real quick. Oh shoot, am I not sharing my screen on Discord? Oh, my bad, y'all. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen the whole time. All right, I don't think there's anything critical I was saying in regards to the screen share. Well, I hope not. If there was, then I guess once I post the recording, then then you can watch it there. Sorry, y'all. All right, so Tesla today. Whoa. All right, there's some kind of glitch. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that replay. All right, so Tesla, we opened at 350. So what was the question? So we start at the king node, the right play is instantly put there. No, Felipe, so actually, like if we open right at the king node, I'd probably be waiting for a bounce off of it. Like right at open, I guess we had come from below, but I usually don't like trading like really close to open. So I probably would have waited for this pump to develop, and then you could have played the retest of 350, right? So we rejected a little bit in the morning, like a dollar, and then broke through that level and pumped all the way to 355, 356. So I would have been waiting for price to then come and revisit. So if we play through this map, right, you'll see as we pushed away, we still had very strong volume down here at 350, right? So I would have been waiting for price to come down and tap 350 and play another bounce off of that. So there's quite a few bounces, honestly, at 1020, 1040, 11. So if you're playing 350 on the dot, actually these first couple bounces never hit it. Like it got really close. But if you're waiting for 350 to tap exactly, you would have done this 11 a.m. entry, right? Or 11:10. And this would have carried you through basically till 2 p.m. So that probably would have been the play there on Tesla, Felipe. But yeah, I typically don't play the nodes like off open. That's a personal preference thing. Like I usually wait for things to settle down a bit more and I'll play them a little bit later. So hopefully that helps, Felipe. Okay. Yep. Uh, I don't know how to say this. Cowhey. Is this options? It can be options or it can be futures. Like you can have the same thesis on options or futures, right? How you execute is different. Even within options, you have the same thesis and execute it differently, right? Some people are going to buy calls, some people are going to buy a bull debit spread, some people are going to sell put credit spread, right? Like there's many different ways to execute. So whether it's options, futures, you should still be executing all this. It's the directionality that matters, right? The vehicle you use to actually trade it is up to you. There's a bit of difference between how you do it if you're using some of the spreads, or if you're doing futures or just normal options. Like there can be a big difference in how you're executing, but your thesis should still be the same regardless. Kauhi. And John, can you explain what happened with Zymes going against the trend? Uh, can you give me a bit more detail, John? Like what time? I have no idea like what trade he took, what time, what strike. Like I have no idea. Because there's a few moments today that if he took puts, probably could have made money. I just don't know when he did. So yeah, if you send me, yeah, just send me a bit more info and then I'll be able to help more on that. All right. Okay, Shaw. So if we have time, you need more replay with Atlas and using a Q and Spy and where to interpret Pika or Barney. Okay, Shaw, can you DM me a reminder? I think maybe I'll just do that on my own and record it and then just post that as a YouTube video. I don't want to do it right now because it's not something I've looked at, so it'll take a bit longer if I do it now. And I don't want to yeah, like I don't want to spend time figuring it out live. I'd rather just figure it out on my own than record it. So it doesn't have to be too long of a video. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Keisha, for that reminder. That'll help. Well, the issue is like I don't look at Atlas very much. Like today, I opened it maybe once, right? Like I'm still trading predominantly off the heat maps, so anything Atlas based, I'm actually gonna have to go back and use the replay mode and sort of see what was going on myself as well. So that's the reason I don't. Um, yeah, I prefer to do that on my own with a bit more time, and then I can just post a video about that. I think. Yeah, no problem, Felipe. Have a good one. I think Tirth, Shaw, I think Tirth, if you go to Analyst Insights, he posted like a time lapse video. So I think he's been posting a few of those on Twitter. So those are also probably be of interest to you. But I'll try to make a breakdown like with voiceover and stuff, not just like a video, not just a time lapse, but me going through it and voicing over. All right. Fareed, do I use Trinity for individual stocks as well? No, I don't. I just have SPX, SPY, QQQ. You can, right? Like I know a lot of people will trade the three indexes and they'll add Tesla, Microsoft, Nvidia sort of on the side. I think you can have up to six panels on on Trinity, but I personally just stick to the base level, like just the standard Trinity. And anytime I'm looking at individual tickers, I just pull up the map alone. All right, Baggins. In the docs, there's a section explaining the tap percentages, first, second, third. Earlier on SPY, we rejected 682 four times before going up. Do you have a way or indicator to figure out the test of the levels? No, Baggins, that's just based off charting. Um, and yeah, sometimes we're gonna bounce more than three, four times before we break through it, right? But like I don't know, let's say this level here on SPX, right? We came and tapped it. What? I guess I could. It depends if you count this as a third, but we had two taps and then third tap broke through, right? Or if you count this one as a tap, you have three, right? So if your line's a little bit lower down here, we technically did get four taps. So this might be the one you're talking about. But a lot of times, if like they're very close together. So for example, this portion here, since it's all consolidating right around it, I'm just looking at this as maybe one, two, three taps, and then it broke on the fourth. So it also just depends what time frame you look at too, right? I wouldn't. I usually stick to 3 or 5 minute if I'm doing indexes. I don't. I would not go any lower than three. But also, if you go to like 15 minute, then it's just a lot more broad, and you're looking for like more big picture moves. Yeah, like you'd have to be counting each of these wicks separate. So I don't know. I preferred five. Like I feel like for the structure on the day, that gives me a better chance there, or a better grasp of it. Um, Same thing at 1036. You hit 679 five or six times. 1036. What time frame are you looking at this? Five or six times? 679 node. That was like down here. Five or six times. Well, I guess one thing is like I don't actually count like the individual candles that tap it, if that makes sense. Like if it's like a group, I'll just sort of group them and I'll say like this is one tap at this moment. So I don't send me your chart maybe and like drop a few circles of like what the five or six taps were. But to me, I don't think any level tap five times, five, six times. Okay. Garcia, what is the difference between the various GECs, Trinity Skylit images on the Discord? Or sorry, Dennis. So the data displayed should be the same, right? So Trinity is just showing you the first column of SPX, right? So if I pull up SPX, you're gonna see, okay, we have 20,000.7, 17,000.9 up here. If I pull up Trinity now, you're gonna see it's the same thing, 20,000.7, 17.9. So it's the same data being displayed. It's just that Trinity is taking the first column. So for the index is today's expiration, and it's just showing that column, right? Because the first column of each index is really what we're focusing on for the most part when we're doing day trading, right? And then as for the Discord maps compared to the website, it's the same data, right? It's just a different output. Um, So the Discord's how it was originally presented when like this server first started last May of last year. Um, but nowadays, like obviously the website got implemented, etc. So but it's the same data being piped to each, just different ways of viewing it, right? All right, and then the learn section in the Discord. Dennis, go to new to Skylit. It should be at the top under announcements, and there's a ton of links posted there that will help you out. All right, all right. Let me switch back over to Discord real quick. All right, can you show the 614, 613 level today for QQQ? Looks confused. Looks confused. Yeah, I can pull. Yeah, let's pull up QQQ, and then I'll pull up that. All right, I don't know. QQQ is like a phantom wick. That one didn't show up on SPY or futures or anything, so I'm ignoring that. But that printed near end of day. So what was I gonna say? Oh, so 613 was a major node all day on QQQ, right? So as we started pushing up, so like even around 11, right? So let me actually go back here. Right, where we had 613 major volume, 612 negative volume. So a lot of times, for any of you who have read through some of the stuff, right, this is our rug pull, right? Where we have negative volume increasing volatility. So when we know a lot of times we'll overshoot, and then when we do so, we're tapping into a positive node that can reject, right? I will say QQQ, like the rug pull is there. I don't like this map at all because there's so much volume spread out everywhere. So even if we reject 613, 611 is going to prevent further downside, right? And you'll see we never drop below 611, right? So this move down, like when you get pretty compressed like this, a lot of times you can't expect a very large move, right? So I personally don't like trading those very much. But if your timing is like spot on, then you can absolutely trade them and scalp those smaller ranges, right? Yeah, but as we're going tapping into 613, we also have 680 on SPY acting as a ceiling there. And I think we overshot this one on SPY a bit, but then we got a bit of a drop, right? By the time we go and tap it the second time, so around like 11:30, let me go back here. Yeah, so around here we go and tap it again. We still have the 613 strong resistance and we reject, right? So we didn't quite tap 613 and rejected a bit early, like 612.8. But again, these nodes have a bit of buffer on the upper downside as well, right? Then on the third tap of 613, we finally break through, right? And this is also news influence, like this lunch run up. But then at that point, we're saying, okay, that strong resistance that we've been looking at, once we break above, we're now looking at it and saying, okay, can this be flipped to support, right? So we see, okay, this volume's holding. We've had a lot of volume flip higher on SPX, SPY. So at that point, we'd be saying, okay, like any retest of 613, which happened at 1240, right? We had a strong retest. Actually, let me go back here. So here, right, 1235, we already start breaking above. And let me go minute by minute, honestly, because this was happening pretty rapidly. Right, so 1235, we're already popping above. But then we come back down and retest 613, right? So that would have been also a valid trade is when we go from, okay, we're at six, like six, what was the high here? 614, a little bit above. And we go and tap 613 almost on the dot, right? 613.01 at around 1242. So that would have been like the retest, like support resistance flip with that level, right? So that's how I was looking at those nodes. Like I think I actually don't know, but probably quite a few people caught that break and retest. I'd have to go check like the messages within the Discord. But that's how I'd be looking at those. Starry. As for the image you sent, I actually would be by that point in the day, right? That was much later on. By then, 615 had already built a huge amount of volume. Actually, what time did you send this screenshot at? Oh, this at 348. All right, so if we go to 348, right? By this point, we've already actually pushed past 615, right? So we're kind of retesting it on this dip. If you go like 5 minutes previous, Or when was this? 3:35. Yeah. We're already past 6:15. So we've already actually broken above that was also a bit of a ceiling. And now we're looking at 6:15 and 6,860, right? And we're saying, okay, if we retest these can now be flipped to floors and we're going to get a further push upwards, right? Probably going up to the 685 on SPY, going up to that king node. Um, so again, like it's in the screenshot you sent, Starry, you want to be looking at where do we have strong volume, but at the moment you had sent it, right? We also have to recognize where are we approaching from? So since price had already pushed past it, it was approaching from the upside, we can now say, okay, this could be basing as a floor, and we sort of have like this support resistance flip here, right? That ended up bouncing price into end of day. So I mean, yeah, at this point we wouldn't have expected such a big move. But there's also one thing of like, if you're looking at QQQ in isolation, you're saying, okay, I don't think there's any more upside left. But if you're looking at SPX, SPY, you'd be seeing SPY and saying, okay, there's a potential we get another pop here and go push towards the 685 node, right? SPX as well, like it didn't look like it had as much upside, but it definitely had a floor there, right? King node might be support or yeah, so the king node is just a significant level, right? Whether it's support or resistance and what do we think there is we're just gonna base that off of our charting, right? But yeah, absolutely. A level that was previously strong support, strong resistance, it can be flipped, right? And act in the opposite manner if we break past it or whether that's to the upside or to the downside. All right. Dennis, can you get Trinity? No, so the website access is only at Initiate. So there's a discount for Initiate, which brings it down to like 250 a month. But yeah, with just Discord access for community or for anyone in Owls, like with the free trials y'all get, you're only going to get the Discord bots, right? So obviously you have one channel for SPX, SPY, QQQ, I think IWM as well. So you have, a dedicated channel for each of those, and then you have the Heat Seeker bot, which that one you can use to pull any ticker you want. You can also back test with that one. But again, that's the video on my YouTube. I have a video on my channel that goes over like how to navigate the Discord one. But yeah, Dennis, that should answer that question. Starry, if price passes through the king node, we may see a big upwards move, and if it breaks down through, we see a lot of downside. Not necessarily, right? Like I'd say in isolation on a map, we don't actually know. The reason I said so here, because we broke and retested, strong king node as a floor, but also we still had SPY pulling us up, right? So sometimes, especially end of day, we'll just pin. Like we'll reach this level and we'll just chop around it and pin, right? So today was like a very strong move end of day, but some days when we chop into close, you're just gonna see very strong levels that don't do anything, right? Like price reaches them and we just sort of sit there the rest of the day until market close. So I wouldn't assume that like just because we break a king node doesn't mean we're gonna like fly the rest of the day, right? Most of the days like that. What do you mean by like that? Like most of the days are more choppy into close? Yeah, I do think like today was a pretty tricky day, right? Where the very few like yeah, you're correct. Sorry. Like today was like a very, very strong move end of day. A lot stronger than I was expecting. But today was just tricky overall, right? Because a lot of times we're looking for reversals with this strategy, and then since there were a few, but they're very small, like they're very limited, right? So if you missed like that initial pump, which a lot of people did, right? Like let's just say you missed it or you were working, whatever. Um, then they did not give many opportunities afterwards. Uh, yeah, and you're correct. The SPY node today had huge, huge volume, right? Like we were pushing towards 1 billion and I think like 1.5 billion end of day, which is definitely a lot larger than usual. Devoid. Yeah, and a lot of new. Yeah. So yeah, today was yeah, I hated it, right? Because like price would push up and then it looked like, okay, we may finally be stalling out, getting a bit of a rejection, and we would like reject a little bit, and then we'd immediately get some kind of news that would just rip it right past. So yeah, it was pretty brutal. Unless you're taking quick profits or leaving like break even stops on some of these plays, but it was a pretty tricky day. Yeah, and I mean like the news aspect cannot be helped, right? Like it's just been very, very volatile lately with the news. So yeah, it's just been one extra thing to deal with. All right. Dubai Kid, what's my take on Palantir? Yeah, I'll look. All right, one second here. Let me pull up Palantir. Let me switch this to a higher time frame. Yeah, my computer is definitely slower than usual. Yeah, I might have to start running these things only on Zoom. Ah, that's annoying. I don't like running these all over. All right. Oh, I didn't switch to Palantir. My bad. All right, all right, so we got a lot of volume at 150. This is going into next OPEX. This map is really messy right now. Yeah, so 134 we have some volume, 131 as well. I think I looked at this yesterday, right? Was it today? I swear I looked at this recently for somebody. Um, yeah, but at this point, the we had a lot of volume up here at 140. I guess we opened up at around 130, 131. So we have this as a floor, right? And it looks like we came and we didn't quite tap 131, but we got close, and it looks like we may be bouncing throughout after hours. But Palantir is a good example of like there's just a lot of nodes cluttered together, right? So you can scalp it right between like ranges, but a lot of times if we're not expecting like a huge move because there's so many gatekeepers, right? Or nodes that can get in the way. So even if we bounce off 131 upwards, I'd be pretty hesitant about assuming 140 will come because 134 has a huge amount of volume, right? And then 134 is what roadblocked it today. So a lot of times when we see these maps that just have a lot of intermediate levels, right? So like Palantir, we have volume from 150 all the way down to like 120, but we have nodes like every $5, right? Or even closer in some places. So it's just like even when we break past the node, there's just not as much room to run, right? And then you don't know, right? Like if it's gonna run, let's say it breaks 134, right? And it's gonna run $6 to 140. That move may be worth it, but like especially on Palantir, right? Like that they can chop that and they can take all week to do that, right? So I'd be looking for like a bigger air pocket, I guess, for me to trade. Like most of the individual tickers I trade, they have like huge air pockets. So I think, oh, I never posted that recap. But okay, after this, I'll splice my old office hours. And I'm gonna post a recap of I think it was Eli Lilly and I think OKLO had decent setups last week. So I'll try to post those, and that'll probably give you a couple better examples of what I look for Dubai Kid. But at least right now in Palantir, it's a pretty messy map. I wouldn't be too interested in it. I guess unless we break above 134 and retest that level, so we kind of be reclaiming this wick over here, but then you could look for a push to 140 and like this gap fill. But yeah, I personally don't. Usually the Palantir map is pretty cluttered. Chopper Heatseeker showing 417. Yes, it should be showing that because that's the next expiration for Palantir, right? Yeah, yeah, no problem. A lot of news candles. Baggins, you sent me the picture. Oh, Baggins, thank you. Yeah, I'll take a look at that after this. Actually, I think I still owe you an answer from the morning office hours. or the afternoon one. So I'll get you a reply on both of those. I just haven't had time to go through DMs yet. All right, Cap. Yeah, SanDisk. I will say, I don't know how SanDisk looks now. SanDisk, what the heck? This website got slower, man, I swear. All right. I don't know if there's much to do on SanDisk. What when you have like these just straight pumps, there's not a lot you can do, right? Because usually what starts to happen is like when you get these explosions. This happened last year with Quantum. Like Quantum had a period where it was just ripping. What you'll notice, and I think OKLO had a run like this as well. What you'll see is that the basically the nodes are playing catch up, right? So as price just rips, like if we look at the map right now, the nodes are still showing prices that it just came from, right? So it's like they haven't quite caught up with where price is now. So a lot of times on these like very explosive moves, I don't use the heat maps very much at all, especially SanDisk that's like pushing all-time highs. There's like no structure to go off of at all, right? So I usually avoid these tickers. I guess the only way you could trade them is if you're looking at like fib extensions or potentially standard deviations off of like manipulation legs. That'd be the only way to start like trying to time the top. Or if we see some kind of volume step in, like, but right now above, there's like no ceilings, right? And a lot of times with these like super strong moves to all-time highs, you're not seeing, you don't get like those ceilings to show up very clearly. So yeah, I'm not too interested in SanDisk. Like, I probably wouldn't be doing anything with it, but um, yeah. But I mean, that's my take. I usually don't like to. And this was happening with like gold and silver as well, right? When they had like their huge rips, I usually do not like to get in the way of those. I just let them play out and go focus on some other sector. Sell. Oh, sell. I went over it very briefly, but I basically there's a few questions about like some of the more fundamentals. So I pointed to a few resources. If you go to the heat seeker analysis, there's if you go to the pin messages, there's going to be quite a few resources there. So I just pinned one that's written documents, and then if you want YouTube videos, scroll a bit further down, and I pinned one where I'm going over some of the useful videos on Glitch's channel. So start there, but then feel free to DM me if you have questions on any of that content or just any more general questions. SNDK will join the NASDAQ. Well, if it joins the NASDAQ, the thing's gonna go even further. I don't know how much further that thing can go. It has to settle down at some point. Netflix, yeah, let me look. Yeah, no problem, sell. All right, so Netflix. Let's see here. All right, so Netflix. Wait, when did Netflix have their stock split? Does anybody know the date? November 17. Well, Netflix had a crazy rip in February. Oh man, I had this. I completely missed this. I had this charted. Fuck. Okay. Well, that's too bad. All right. So at this point, Netflix. So it looks like 100. So 100 would be a really good level if we retest, right? So we had this after this huge rip, right? We rejected off 100. Now that we've broken above, see if we can retest that, use it as support, get a further push. Hopefully last week was not the only retest, and we come back down and revisit that level. Um, but yeah, it looks like it actually has. We don't really have a staircase here. We definitely have a lot of like positive OPEX volume for next month. but it's not a sustained push, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'd probably just be waiting for a retest of 100. I wouldn't want to short 104 just because it's kind of a middle node, like an intermediate node. So if I were wanting to short, I'd probably be waiting for this 107, 108, probably be waiting for a bit higher. Probably main thing here on Netflix is like I'd just be waiting for 100. See if we get some kind of pullback and take a play back off this level, right? That we just broke above. All right, who has for Netflix? That was cool, 88. Arlissa, new here. I trade credit spreads on SPX each day. I'd like to be able to use it for one DTA. For one DTE trades, what's a good time to look at the data? Uh, I don't know what word that's supposed to be after data. But what's a good time to look at data? Oh, at data each day for the next day numbers. Um, I would say in the recent market, or at least it's just it hasn't been very conducive to that because of the amount of like news cycles going on overnight. So I would honestly say stick to 0 day spreads until like we're a little bit more stable with just like the geopolitical situation. Now that's not my advice, but if you're, I guess to answer your question, right? Um, when is the best time to use it? Well, it shouldn't matter. I would say pretty late in the day you do start getting a bit more like repositioning for the next day. But as long as you're switching over to VEX, right? Like if you're looking next day, like 1 day, 2 day expiration spreads, I would be checking VEX as well as GEX, right? So GEX sometimes will show us big hints in terms of volume for the next day. But a lot of times it'll be pretty sparse on volume next day, right? So if you look at the VEX, that'll give you a much clearer picture. So I would encourage you to look at that. And the VEX, obviously, you can only like you'll have to look at the maps individually, but you'll still need to the same assumptions carry about or sorry, the same rule applies about like having confluence across the three indexes, or at least two of them, is if you have one vex pointing upwards, but then one down, one up, and one neutral, then that's probably not a trade you want to take, one DTE, right? Whereas if you have all three indexes pointing downwards, then that's probably going to be a bit higher confidence, right? For you to take. So that would be my advice there. But I do a lot of credit spreads too, but I stick to 0 DTE. So I would have to look into the 1 DTE side if that's so. Yeah, let me know. That's something I can probably track and try to paper trade for you and maybe get you a better answer with a bit of time. But at least for now, I don't have like a really clear answer on that one, just because I haven't done it myself. Sam, where are the docs you had earlier in the day? Oh, the Greek's Bible? Yeah, 1 second. I'll just send you the link. I actually don't reference that document very much. But it is very useful if you want to get into like more of the fundamentals. I used to read through it a bit more, but then I don't know. I became more focused on like, okay, how do I use this tool? Even if I like still need to learn some of the like core concepts of why or like what everything means. I got a bit more focused on just learning how to use it and trade well with it rather than understanding every detail behind it. So, but I know a lot of people are interested in that aspect, right? So I would, yeah, for those of you who want to understand like the full market mechanics and what's going on, I would, yeah, encourage you to read that one. Overseas, I am looking at the chat, but I'm splitting focus. So, yeah, have some patience, please. Yeah, no problem. It's just, yeah, I had to find some way to be able to have the office hours in both Discords. So it's not ideal, but I'm looking back and forth between the both. All right, Mickey, UNH. Then I'll swap over to what they're asking on OWLS. All right, so new UNH, I forget what news they had, but they had this huge news and got like a massive pump off of that. It looks like right now our range is just 320 to 300. So I would just wait for either one of those levels to be approached, right? At least right now, there's not much else to do. Vex is confirming that we have strong levels at each of those, so I'd just be waiting for one of those to tap. 320. Yeah, 320, we did get a few rejections here, so it's a pretty valid support resistance level. I think also if you where are my tools? Oh, here they are. So this is probably also bearish. This might be bearish golden pocket actually, 320. Yeah, so 320 is also bearish golden pocket, so I'd be looking at that. It's honestly a pretty good level. Um, wait, when is earnings for this though? Huh. Why is this not showing earnings? Whatever. Earnings is like in a week or two, so just yeah, be careful with the length of the trade that you do for UNH. But at least right now, I'd be looking at 320, 300. And then past OPEX, we have very light volume, so I'd be waiting to see how it develops after Friday. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll tap one of those, but with these, I just kind of set alerts on either side, and then once we tap one, if we do, then I go double check the maps, make sure that that it looks similar, and then I'll go ahead and take a trade at that point. All right. And Sam, yes. Sam, for indexes, yes, VEX longer term, GEX for zero DTE, but for individuals, I would look at GEX for like weeklies. And then if you're looking at anything 2 weeks or further out, I would look at GEX and VEX. So I would look at VEX for like your directionality, but you could still check the GEX for like your actual entry point, right? So you kind of use them in conjunction when you're doing longer term or midterm. All right, overseas on a normal heat seeker for one stock. Shouldn't any node at any strike show the combined GEX at the same strike across all DTs? No. Um, no, and that's the whole point of us having the expiration columns separated, right? So we're not showing combined at that combined based on date. I mean, you can go build that out yourself or do the math and just add them up, but no, right now it's just by expiration. So there will be times when you have levels that are defended across different expirations. I don't know if I have a good example of this. Maybe Google. No, it wasn't Google. I don't know what was that ticker I was thinking of. Hmm. No, I don't remember which one I was thinking of. Sorry. But sometimes what you'll see is you'll see strong volume over the course of 2 weeks. Let's say this one on CoreWeave, right? 110, where we have pretty good volume across all of it, but it's not being lumped into the first column. Market makers should be acting according to their combined GEX. I have no idea. I mean, that's a market maker question. I know this is based on like the volume they have, or like option data at each expiration for each strike, right? That's just like what the data is. I don't know how the market makers are using this stuff, right? That's up to them. Yeah, so who asked this? Overseas. I know that kind of answers your question, kind of not, but yeah, I'm not sure how they use this data, right? Like this is, well, I don't even know if they're probably looking at this data a completely different way anyways. So I'm not well aware how they're going about it. But I do know that this tool is not lumping expirations together, right? It is keeping them separate. Whether market makers do that or not, I'm not aware. All right. Let me see. Hey Larry. Scary movie. No, I hate scary movies. I'm really bad with them. Um, what is my favorite ticker to track? I like CoreWeave a lot actually. It's a shame I haven't been tracking it lately because it's had like amazing moves. So I'm actually pretty annoyed about that. Um, Let me see. I used to trade Datadog a lot. Datadog, Snowflake, CoreWeave, uh, Rocket Lab at times will move very well. Rigetti, I used to trade a lot. I used to trade, actually, I used to trade all quantum quite a bit. Um, Out of the Max 7, NVIDIA is probably the one that I like the most. I just feel like usually the other Max 7s, like the heat maps are extremely messy. Now, this was more for when they were weekly expirations. I haven't tracked them very much now that they're dailies. So I'm not sure if that still holds true, but at least in the past, I found NVIDIA was usually the cleanest out of all of them. And then, oh, I'm missing one. There's definitely another ticker I used to trade all the time. Give me a second here. What was that? MBIS, I also trade a little bit. It's not the one I was thinking of though. Oh man, I don't know. Oh, UPST. I used to play UPST a bit actually. But sometimes UPST has really bad bid ask, so that one really depends. Yeah, probably though. I mean, I'm probably missing a few, but those are probably some of the ones that come to mind immediately. And then I think I traded Walmart a few times. Walmart and Caterpillar actually. Caterpillar when Caterpillar moves, it like moves big time. So that was also one I had traded at one point. But I'll be honest, like I've traded not every ticker. I've traded most more tickers on the heat maps than most people. Because I didn't really like for example, Jewel would find like a he would shortlist the tickers he likes the most, right? Which now I do, but when I first started, I didn't. So if I saw a good map, regardless of what it was on, like I wouldn't even check, right? I would just start trading. So it's probably a bad thing. Like I was trading some stuff with like horrendous bid ask spreads and like I just kind of forced my way around it. But I would not recommend that to anybody, honestly. Like it's not a waste of time, but you could probably skip quite a bit. You save yourself a lot of time just by picking out some tickers that have a lot better volume than what I was doing. But hopefully that helps, Larry. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your other question. How do you handle low liquidity, widespread options, sit out? Yeah, Larry, I mean, what I'd do there is like I would just lowball them like super extreme, right? But yeah, I'd miss a ton of them. A ton of those moves would just never get filled, and yeah, I just never deal with it. But the reason, the reason I think you should be really greedy with the entry on those is because as difficult as it is to get in, it's just as difficult to get out, right? So you're dealing with like a bad bid ask doesn't screw you once, it screws you twice. So you either need like a huge move to still be okay, or you need to just be that greedy on the entry that you can kind of save yourself there. Because usually on the exit, I get a lot less greedy, right? On the exit, I'm just like, okay, I need to cut this for some profit, whatever it may be, even if I'm dealing with, I don't know, 10% less than what I wanted, I'm still willing to take that. But on the entry, I'm less accepting to take that. So hopefully that makes sense, Larry. But yeah, yeah, some of those low liquidity tickers, it's they're tricky. All right. Uh, but yeah, Larry, let me know which ticker you're actually looking at. It's possible I've actually traded it before, so I might have like more specific feedback, but that's just my general advice. And like I've traded some like Twilio, Take Two, like TTWO, like some of those have really bad spreads. Arlissa, where can you see the Vex chart? Uh, Arlissa, so it's gonna be there's a toggle on the top left. There's like a lightning bolt, and then there's this little like bar graph. The bar graph is Vex. Or you can press Shift V if you're on keyboard. So if you're on keyboard, where are the keyboard shortcuts? I thought there should be a keyboard shortcut button somewhere. Wait, did I lose it? Oh, it's up here. I guess it disappears when I zoom in. But yeah, if you go over here, switching to NetVex, it's Shift V, and it'll show you a bunch of these other shortcuts that'll be useful for you. Yeah, I didn't know that button disappeared when you zoomed in. Interesting. But yeah, that's how you check the VEX, Arlissa. Oh, this is assuming you have website access. If you have only Discord access, you'll have to use the Heatseeker bot. And you can just go in there, whatever ticker you query, just press enter, and you'll get the gex first, and then the vex heat map under. Right. Atwal, where was the shortcut on the web? There should be a keyboard on the top right that you can select. Sam. Would recommend playing retest of nodes. If a node is broken clean upwards, would you play a call off of it when it comes back down to retest? Or what rule would you use to consider it a retest and not an overshoot? Oh, I see what you're asking. Um, yeah, so usually it's ticker dependent, right? So if we're talking indexes, usually what I'm looking for to establish if it's broken a level or just an overshoot is if it's gone. Usually the rule is $5 on SPX and a dollar on SPY or not a dollar, sorry, 50 cents. Due to the increased volatility the past few weeks, I've actually been giving it a bit more room. So I've been treating it as like $1 or 10 points on SPX. Um, so if the volatility settles down, you can probably go back to using like 50 cents or $5 on SPX. But if we keep our volatility pretty high, then that's, you may want to give it a little bit extra buffer. Maybe not all the way to a dollar, but maybe 70 cents, 80 cents, or $7 to $8 on SPX. And then if that's a ticker dependent, I don't know if you're asking about indexes or just individual tickers. If you're asking about individual tickers, um, that's very ticker dependent, right? So for example, like I used to trade Soundhound, right? Or like Quantum, right? When I traded Quantum a lot, like there's some sectors that are very, very volatile, right? OKLO had an extremely volatile period last year, BE as well. So if you know it's a very volatile sector, it's very hot, the IV is insane. Like, I'd be trading tickers with an IV of 100, 150% on these contracts, right? You know that there's a higher likelihood that we overshoot pretty steep. Um, so in those cases, like I'd be like in some of those trades, right? It's a ticker of like $50, $70, and you're giving it like $3 to $4 of overshoot space, right? Which is something like almost close to SPX overshoot, right? Even though it's like a fraction of the price. So know what ticker you're trading and like what sector it's in and how the market conditions are of that sector. And you have to account for that sometimes when you're trying to decide what is an overshoot versus not, right? So in general, the rule is okay, we just give it like a node, but some sectors are going to violate that pretty steep, right? Whereas other sectors are a lot more stable. Like I think, let's say, I don't know, Coca-Cola or Ford, right? Those are much less likely to overshoot very steeply. So just know what ticker you're trading if it's an individual, but if it's indexes, yeah, if it's indexes, I would stick to $5 or half a dollar on SPY QQQ. Um, but lately I've been giving it like I want to see a full dollar above, right? Or 10 points. So I've been giving it a bit extra where if I'm looking at a half dollar, I'm still saying, okay, that can be an overshoot. So now I've been wanting to say for me to switch from overshoot to a full break and now we can play the retest, I want to see like a full dollar passed. Uh, oh, and then yeah, if it's positive versus negative, yeah, I guess if it's negative, you probably want to give it a little bit more, right? Like maybe say a dollar. Yeah, maybe push towards a dollar if it's a negative node. But yeah, with all the news recently, I've seen some pretty crazy ones. Like I remember, I think there was an overshoot of like a good $1.50, $1.70 one day, which it just happened like we were tapping that level right as news came out. So like it was a super extreme wick that then ended up rejecting back under. So still size for zero and like just give it a bit of time, right? Um, but yeah, like knowing a rough area where once we push past that, now you're ready to say, okay, perhaps our thesis has been lost, and that's going to be pretty helpful. Oh, I see. Yeah, no problem, Dennis. Yeah, well, yeah, you want to be pretty careful with that, right? When we have a more volatile market, like news headlines are just flying everywhere. I would give it a bit more cushion, right? So I'd size down firstly, but then I'd give it a bit more cushion when I'm in plays, right? So yeah, it looks like yeah, you've probably been yeah, if you've been using 50 cents as like oh we've broken it. Now you must be gone. You've probably been cutting a few plays a little early. So even in stable conditions, 50 cents is like the max overshoot, right? So even at 50 cents, I would still be waiting for a bit past that, right? 60 to 70 cents, maybe further, even 80. Because 50 cents could still just be an overshoot. It's the way I look at it. All right. But yeah, hopefully, yeah, let me know. Make that change and let me know how it goes. That should help you out a bit. Larry, you shortlisted the heat maps, that better liquidity. Yeah, Larry, I'd stick with that. So like unless one of these low liquidity tickers just has like a god tier setup, yeah, I'd probably just avoid them. All right. Overseas, possible to show other features. How do I use Flow? I don't use Flow overseas. So I don't know. I know like yeah, like the Flow experts aren't owls. Like I think Keon and there's probably a few other people that I'm not aware of, but that are like just pure Flow experts. I've never used Flow at all, I'll be honest. I never really liked the theory of it. I know people who read it well are very like adept with it, but yeah, I guess once I learned the system, I didn't want to go learn something else. So I mean, yeah, I can look at NBIS heat map wise, but Flow, you're gonna have to ask Keon or someone else in here. All right. Uh, and let me pull up. Wait, let me pull up the chart for NBIS. So I know NBIS has just ripped heavy, which I'm pretty mad about. I had shares and I sold them, I think. Yeah. Oh, this is too bad. Well, anyways, so yeah, I mean, it looks like 160 is trying to build a bit of resistance here, but looks like 150 came and backed it up as a floor. So I don't know. I mean, NBIS after the rip we've had, it's just pretty similar. Like, I would not want to get too much in the way of this. If we do drop back down and retest, actually, we already did, right? So you see this 140 previous, I don't know if it's a previous all-time high, but previous swing high. We broke above it, retested off of that perfectly, and then got a strong push. So I wonder, yeah, I wonder what the maps look like Friday at close. Let me switch over to that. Because if this was a good trade, this was a super clean setup. Yeah, so Friday at close. Wait, let me switch that hourly. Yeah, this is pretty nice. I mean, Friday at close 145, holding a ton of volume. We have 150 going into next week. And Vex had 150, 150 all the way to 180. And MBS is kind of weird where I guess they don't have the strikes yet. So the heat map, I know it's showing as only like 5 strikes up, but this is actually a $30 span, whereas 5 strikes down is just $5. So this is like if you're looking at this like linearly, it's actually not linear, right? Is my point. So my point is like this 180 target is like way further than just the nodes would suggest. So it's kind of like a funky display here. And this happens a lot on like these lower, like when these tickers get huge pushes and they just haven't offered all the strikes there, they don't show up because they don't exist yet, right? But yeah, NBI, I mean after the rip MBIS has had, I wouldn't be I don't see like a strong enough ceiling, honestly. I mean, 160 is there, so we'll see. Maybe we hold 160 double top or just drop off this rejection that happened today. But yeah, we rejected. I mean, we rejected $5 off of this, so this is definitely a good move. It just depends how juiced these contracts are. A lot of times on a move like that, you'll get some pretty juiced contracts. Palantir, I swear I already looked at Palantir. Palantir I didn't like too much because of how cluttered it was, right? Like I do think this 134 did reject today, right? Like this gatekeeper node to going to like 140. But unless we come back and retap maybe like 130, 131, I probably wouldn't do anything on Palantir just because it's a lot of nodes, so there's not a lot of space to traverse between them, right? The air pockets are not very large. So unless we break and hold over 134, then we could push all the way to 140 and get this gap fill. Maybe that would be interesting. But if we're gonna stick under 134, I don't really like this range from 131 to 134. Banana. Google. Let me check out Google. So Google's one of the rare heat maps. We actually have two because there's Goog with no L and then Google with the L. It looks like right now they're trying to claim 320 as a floor. So if they do so, we may be able to push towards 325, 330. Now, this is based on Goog, which is weekly expirations. But if we look at Google, which has the 3 day a week, or sorry, 3 times a week expirations, yeah, Google looks not as nice. So if 320 builds more volume, and I would really want to see like 310, even 315. Yeah, so if we manage to get over 320, but otherwise 315 looks like it could be a floor here. But yeah, I mean, this is now the third test of this level on Google, right? So what I'd be looking for is see if we can break above, hold 320, come and retest, and then play that bounce further to 330 by end of week, let's say. So that's probably my thoughts there, Banana. Towards 325 or 330? Not sure. All right. Where else? Oh, Chopper left. Yeah, I'll have to DM her about silver. Devoid, do I use flow in your trading? No, Devoid again. I don't use any flow. Just heat maps and charting. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not bashing flow. Like people who know how to read flow are like incredible traders, right? It's not something I've ever learned. So for now, I just use the heat maps. Maybe someday I'll add flow, but for now, I think there's still enough I can learn and explore on the heat map side that I'll, s- yeah, I guess I'll stick to mastering this rather than trying to pick up something else completely new. Um, but yeah, I mean, like sometimes I'll go check, I don't know, like Twitter and random stuff. And I guess now that Flow Seeker's out, I'll probably be like, I'll just keep an eye out if anyone else has any like big flow that they're no noticing. But um, yeah, I think if you're able to like filter correctly, it's probably very useful, some of the flow stuff. But if you're just reading the tape, you got to have a ton of experience reading that stuff to actually be able to pick out the important parts. But yeah, that's definitely not me. So so I stick to what I know better. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, it's almost 11. Yeah, it's been going like an hour and a half. I might cut it soon, unless someone else has any other questions. And then yeah, for those of you in Owls again, like go through some of the fundamental stuff, message me, and then I'm happy to chat. But I think some of the like the very basic stuff I don't want to cover every single week. So I'll cover it briefly, but I think I'll may also just point y'all to a few resources you can use. And then also I know y'all have tomorrow your like free heat map access. So yeah, if there's any questions throughout the day, just message me. Otherwise, I'm not gonna make sure you message in the heat seeker analysis channel. If you message in some of the other ones, I don't read those like at all. So I'll miss all those messages. So yeah, but I'll keep an eye out and make sure y'all get any questions answered. Um, right. Yeah, yeah, no problem. Who said this? Yeah, no problem, J-Dub, Banana. All right. Anyone Asgard side on Zoom? Anything else? Otherwise, I think I'll just cut it here and let y'all let everyone get some rest. All right. Yeah, no problem. And our list, I think you're a bit newer, so also feel free to add me and DM me, and I'll help point you to a few resources you need. Devoid, yeah, no problem. No problem, everyone. Yes, Sam, Baggins, hope all of y'all have a good night. Oh, Baggins, I'll get to your questions. Sorry, I haven't been ignoring you. I just I haven't had time in front of my computer to sit down and answer them. All right. Yeah, I think I'll cut this here. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Again, I'll post the recording, but I think most people were here the whole time. All right. Have a good night, everyone. And a good yeah, good luck tomorrow.